Hey guys, it's Sarah. Hope you can hear me. I think this is okay. All right. So, hi. I'm glad you're able to make it here today. If you haven't been here before, I want to welcome you wholeheartedly to be here as one of these lives. I do a live training, free training every week. It used to be Wednesdays, but now it's been Thursdays. Every Thursday at this time, I do a live to help you figure out how to go forward in life as a widow or a widower, as a solo parent, and how to deal with the loss of your loved one. It's tough, and unfortunately, it takes one to have been there before to understand exactly what you have been going through and are going through, and to know that grief isn't something that is just something that you do and you're done with. It's not something you create and fix and to go forward. What is all about is grief really is coming into yourself, into feeling that you are on the right spot. So if you haven't been here before, I want to tell you who I am. My name is Sarah Gallagher. I am a seasoned widow of 8 years now. I have a 10-year-old child, a boy, and a 6-year-old girl. My husband died unexpectedly from a cardiac arrest when he was 40 and I was 37. My son was 2.5 when he passed away, and my daughter wasn't born yet. And it threw me for a loop. It wasn't something I ever wanted to. When you say death do you part, no one expects that death would come as quickly as it did. I had 8 wonderful years with my husband. That was cut short. And when he died, everything changed. My whole entire life changed. My identity changed because I lost all of that. And I didn't have the support that I needed because there are no support groups out there for a young widow, or very few and far between. Our society doesn't deal with grief very well. We're very good at getting things and attracting things, but we're not good at letting go. And unfortunately, death is something we're all going to have to deal with. And a lot of us here have to deal with this earlier than we ever expected to. And we have created this, now have this life that we were expected to have with somebody else, and they're gone. And to have support out there when you were a young widow, and again, I was 37, there was no support groups out there. And it took me 4 years for me to realize how to walk with my grief and how to come to terms with it, and to know that this is not something that I ever fix, but I can learn to live with it. And grief becomes honestly this constant companion that will stay with you forever, because you will never be who you were before, right? Because when you become a widow, when you lose the person in your life, your psyche gets cut in two. And I talk about this all the time with my grief clients, my grief coaching clients, where the fact that you get cut in two and your brain goes one way and your heart goes the other way. And they're just disconnected because your heart's waiting for them to walk through that door, send you another text, give you an email, give you a phone call. And you're always waiting for that. And your brain is trying to understand all the realities of being a solo parent on your own, of the fact that they are dead and this is just you and only you, and this is really difficult for you to do, right? So today what I'm going to be talking about is how one of the most important parts of actually getting to yourself back together again and healing from your mourning and learning to walk with grief really comes down to reconnecting your heart and your mind again. A lot of the work that I do with my clients, and if you're willing to do this too, is to how to reconnect with this. Now, if you're here for the live, before I go into the nitty gritty, if you're here for the live, I'd love you to put hashtag live in the comments. And if you're here for the replay, I'd love you to put hashtag replay. Either way, if you have any comments at all, please make sure that you give permission to Facebook to let StreamYard put your comments in, because otherwise I'm not going to be able to see it. I'd love to be able to answer them as they come in live, because that's what the importance of lives are here to do, right? This is here for me to help you live and interact and give you a taste of what it's like to work with me. I have been grief coaching for 4 years now. Again, I am a seasoned widow of 8 years. I've been a solo widow parent for 7. I am now currently in a relationship, which is nothing I ever expected. But I wouldn't have been here whole and living my best life if I didn't learn to walk with grief and know this is not something that is ever going to go away, but the mourning does. It changes. Today, what we're talking about is really how, I don't know, you probably heard about the tasks or the stages of grief, let's say, right? So everybody wants to feel that their grief is something they can deal with. You're on a completely new journey. You're on a new life journey that you were not prepared for. No one ever gave you the script for it. There's no manual on it, though I'm working on it. But you also want to be able to know that you want to be able to know that if I do this and this and this and this, then I'll be okay. Because this is so unknown for all of you, and you have all these big emotions and all these big things because your heart and your mind are in two separate realities, and you're trying to deal with being who you are, but that person is gone. It's distracting. And you don't feel like you have support because now it's just you with being a solo parent. But to know that you need to heal yourself by doing it on your own, and you can absolutely do it on your own because I'm teaching you these tricks so you can do it on your own. But also to know that there is a group support for you. So whether it is in this free group, whether it's on a one-on-one basis with me, whether it's part of our more intimate container where you get to share your own experiences with other widows who are going to the point where they want to live again. The group's called Rise Like a Phoenix. All these are supports for you that I didn't have and I wish I had. And that's why I created this for you to understand how to get to your next steps in life. So the stages of grief aren't something that were really created for the griever. They were created by watching and learning from people who were on the cusp of death, of learning that as they go through all the different shifts that happen as you have to deal with your mortality. Now, obviously, there's the bargaining, there's the anger, there's the acceptance, and all of that. And I have heard different stages. They heard 5 stages. I've heard 2. I've heard 12. There's 7. It goes all over the place. But they're not made for us. They're not made for us. What they're made for is the person who's about to die. There can be similarities in our own path. But the biggest difference is that we're not coming to terms with death. We are coming to terms with death and how to live with that. And our steps, our own ways, our own mind shift changes are very different than a griever or than somebody who's actually about to die. Because we have to learn how to move forward and live and be here for our children and be here to understand there is still life out there and how to grasp onto that. There's something called the tasks of grief, which, let me go back for a second here. His name was Warden. I'm not sure if I'm saying it correctly. His name is William Warden. He's a psychologist. He has created a book called Grief Counseling and Grief Therapy. And what he tried to figure out is how the model theory is really it opens up the conversation about how the dying process works, how we deal with death and grief as we are living forward. And I know part of you don't want to listen to this because you're like, you've heard all this before, but I will promise you this is different because our grief as widows and widowers, they don't fit in these 5 stages. Okay. But what this model does is explain all the different mindsets that a griever goes through, as a widow goes through. And if you want to pick up the book, obviously go for it. And again, his name is William Warden. It's called The Grief Counseling and Grief Therapy. And what I've done is I've taken these ideas and I've expanded them using what I've known as a widow and what I've been doing as a grief coach and listening to other widows, and I've expanded upon it. And I wanted to share that with you today because it really is part of the core of my group program, which is really trying to reconnect your mind and your heart again. And even though there aren't any set stages per se, there are different mind shifts. There are 5 of them, in fact. Warden said there's 4. I say there's 5. And there's no linear process through them. You are going to hear and you're going to things that are going to talk to you about all these different tasks and all these different stages, those different mindsets that you go through. You can go bouncing back and forth through all the different ones of them, and that's okay. Because as you come to grips with everything that's going on with you, grief isn't a straightforward process. It's all over the place. But I will show you what all the different mindsets that we all as widows will go through, all widows have gone through, all widowers have gone through, and that maybe you can see identify with some of them yourself. I would love to know in the comments if at any point I come to something that you identify with and you resonate with. I'd love you to put a comment in so I can respond to it. So without further ado, I'm going to share my screen. Give me a second, and this is it. This is the Tears of Widowhood. So really what this is the Tears of Widowhood, and it's TEARS are really, it's an acronym for what I'm going to show you, which is about how the first steps on how to reconcile your heart with your head. The first one is the T, the tear. So to accept the reality of the loss. I'm going to blow this up a little bit. So they accept the reality of loss. Now, this really is the first step to reconcile your heart with your head. This could be the hardest and the longest part of your journey. And to explain what this is, the idea is that it can be both simple and complex. So the basic idea is, first of all, you realize that there's the rituals of death, right? So we have to go through funeral, we have a wake, we come together, we talk about them, we have the memorials. That's where you are first trying to realize this is happening, right? And this is true. But this is not just a said and done, right? Because as soon as that funeral is done, as soon as that mourning, that memorial is done, it doesn't end, right? There's all the acceptance of the reality of the significance of that loss. There is, there is, you can talk about it in the past tense. You can downplay the significance of the relationship. You can say, "Oh, I'm fine. I can do this on my own. I'm fine. I'm good." But on a basic level, you really have to realize that the reality of their loss is such a bigger deal than that. There is so much about the accepting of their loss where you have to accept that they're not coming through that door. You have to accept that your life has changed and they're not coming back. And this is so hard to deal with, especially if it's something you weren't expecting, especially if it's a suicide, if it was an overdose, it was a car accident, like all of these things, these are huge, right? To reconcile that this is my reality, that you've not just lost like your husband or your wife, but this is you're recognizing that you've lost what you had. That's this idea that you had going forward isn't ever going to happen anymore. That journey you had, that the identity you have, it's gone. And that's a hard thing. And it's complex and it's different for everybody. And this could be a very hard thing to do. But it's something that you will do and again as you have these triggers happen. Well, let's go to the next stage. Okay. So the next stage is to experience the pain of the loss. So everybody experiences the pain of loss differently. It will affect you physically, mentally, and emotionally. Mentally, you're trying to deal with all the repercussions of how do I do this? What is going on? I have all the admin to do. I have all the stuff I have to do without them. Emotionally, you're going through all these different emotions, and it's not just mourning. It's anger, it's hurt, it's frustration, it's pain. It's so important to know that the despair and hopelessness and the anger and the blame and the relief and the happiness, and yes, there can be happiness involved with this, but these are all complex emotions, and your task is to acknowledge them by talking about it, by realizing that they are there. And you have to know that you can compartmentalize them as much as possible, to say, I can't deal with this emotion right now because I have to make sure my kids are going to school. But if you deny your own feelings, and if you avoid them by compartmentalizing them too much, then you're never going to heal. And if you can't heal, then your kids can't heal because they are looking at you, right? They're mimicking everything you do. So unfortunately, the other problem with this is the society has so bad at dealing with grief. We don't like having to deal with these bad feelings, these horrible feelings, but unfortunately, these are real for you, right? These are things that are going to be affecting you and everybody that you come in contact with. They're going to feel they're going to be touched by you, and it's going to be rubbed off on them some reason. You need to know that your feelings are valid, that your pain and all the feelings that you're feeling, and they're going to come in waves, they're going to come again and again unexpectedly. You're going to have good days and their bad days, and that's okay. The feeling, these feelings are so important because they are talking to you about what you need to acknowledge. You can't downplay the life you had, right? And that goes back to the explain of the reality of the loss, right? Where it triggers you. If you avoid these feelings, it will prolong your grief. You need to acknowledge them, you need to experience the pain and know that it's okay, that you will get through, that they're not going to overwhelm you. On a basic level, you've gone through so many different emotions and experiences where you might be afraid that they're going to overwhelm you to the point where you can't function. And yes, certainly there will be a point where you can't function, where all you're going to want to be is a puddle on the floor, or you're not going to want to get out of bed. That's okay. Know that you can go forward, you can do more, because your body and your mind will not let you get to that point where you're overwhelmed. You'll shut down, you will numb, you will compartmentalize. If you feel at a point where you're doing that too much, then you need to seek out for help, okay? Because PSTD is real, and being overwhelmed by your late grief and being prolonged grief is real. To just know you have to feel these feelings, and you have to know and trust yourself that you can get through the worst of them. And if you need support, if you need help, that's why my group is here. This is why I'm here. This is why my private, more contained group is here. Okay. So the E of the tears is experience pain of the loss. The next is to adjust to the environment. So obviously life has suddenly changed. Things will never be the same as they were, and you must adapt to the new reality. You're going to have to take on new roles and responsibilities while discarding old identities. So realizing that there is so many different secondary losses that you have when you are trying to deal with death, right? It can come over an extended period of time. It can require internal adjustments, external adjustments, spiritual adjustments. For instance, there are things that you have to realize as the only parent and a widow, you have to figure out things you never did before, like budgeting, taking on new skills and tasks, like how to parent on your own, how to juggle more than one kid while juggling yourself, and they have their different school activities, and it's just you, and they both want your attention at the same time, and realizing that you can do all this, but you really have to readjust and figure out your own routine that works with your new reality. It's also going to mean adjusting to a new spiritual environment. You probably have been very changed by the experience of death, and you maybe have changed how you think about yourself and with God and your spirituality and all that. All of this environment is not just internal, it's external, it's spiritual, it's helping your kids adjust to that new environment, and also realizing that you are not the same person anymore, and how to figure out who that new person is, who that new identity is. That's the adjustment to your reality that you have to go through. Then go to the next thing is to reinvest in your new reality. So my mom and I were talking about this today because I was talking to her about this live that was coming up, and she was asking me though, what do you mean like the emotional energy? I'm like, well, because when you are compartmentalizing and you are taking all this energy to push off your emotions, to not acknowledge them, that's a lot of energy, subconscious or not. It's a lot of energy. But once you've gone through all these different experiences of accepting, realizing all the different things that are happening, of experiencing all the feelings that come with grief, which is not just mourning, it's everything in between, of realizing that you have to adjust the new environment. And again, you're going to go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth through all of these. But once you have done that, this is the point where you really start to learn how to live, right? Where you take the energy which you've been spending on pushing off all those things, and now it's there. You don't have to spend it on protecting yourself anymore. You can spend it on investing in yourself. Investing, and if you don't even know how to do that, if you know you want to do that, but you don't know how, this is what I'm here for. If you want to invest in yourself, to know what your new reality is and have the courage and the strength and have someone hold your hand who's been there before, help you figure out what skills you need to develop, help you feel that you can do this on your own. That's your new reality. This is something that is so incredibly important for every widow to go through. The next one, and this is not canon. This one is the idea that as once you've gone through this transformation, once you've gone through all these different mindset shifts back and forth, and you feel free and you feel ready to take on the world again, that's when you soar like a phoenix. That's when you rise like a phoenix, when you rise from the ashes and you find that new, brilliant, determined identity where you are determined to live life fully, not just for yourself, but for your kids. And then you embrace the death of the world that brought you here. You are a phoenix. You will get to that point where you realize your new identity is who you are and you become comfortable with that. It is amazing. I have seen time and time again of widows going through this, and I've been working as a widow coach for 4 years now. And before that, I have been a project manager, and I know how to deal with all the different things that are going on in your life because I've gone through it. And it took me 4 years on my own to figure this out. And I don't want it to take 4 years for you. I don't want you to be 4 years in the fog. I want you to know that you can go through all these things with support because you are a better person and will learn more from this. And I know it's going to sound stupid and horrible, but you are strong because you've had to be strong. You have no other choice. But that's strength. And I like to put it the fact that you're going to go through your own fire. And at the end of it, you're going to be tempered by that. And you're going to be stronger and more you than you ever have. And you're going to have the memories of your loved ones supporting you. This free group is here for you because if you're here, you're probably just new to widowhood. And it's all the feelings and all the things, and you want support. And we have that for you. If you want to be able to go through those phases, those mindsets, and have someone help you tackle every single step of the way, backwards and forwards and inside out. I've been doing this, and my gift is that I can heal you. I can hear you. I know you, and I can understand what you're going through more so than anybody else can because I've gone through it myself. I've been tempered. I'm like that phoenix. My program is called Reclaim Your Life. It's where we go through all those different stages of really, and the fundamental part is reconnecting your heart and your mind again. So they're talking together. And your body, who's obviously gone through trauma itself, because it really feels it's been going through a car crash, you can reconnect those all together. You can knit yourself together a new identity. And I can help you do that. And then after that, once you've realized that new identity, your grief doesn't stop. Your journey doesn't stop, right? There is no definite endpoint. That's only for you. But the next step is the private membership group, which is Rise Like a Phoenix. This is a group which is specifically for widows who figured out who their next identity is and they want to learn more. They want to see how to process that and be with a group of widows who understand each other and are not just looking at reclaiming their lives. They're looking at becoming more. And we're there and we're learning off each other. We are grieving together. We are growing together. There are resources. There's group coaching. But all of this is a process. And I'd love to tell you, here, take this magic pill and you'll be done. I'd love to tell you to say, do these 5 stages of grief and you're fine. And I can't do that because grief isn't fixable. It's manageable. It's something you can learn to live with and it stops beating at your door with all the emotions. It stops being mourning and it starts being love, not just for them, but for yourself and for your children. So stay in the free group if you need a bit more support from the free group. If you feel you want to have more and find a way to reclaim yourself, this is what my program is. We'll get you in. I'll do some one-on-one coaching with you 2 to 3 months. Figure out what your path is, your own unique path. I'm not going to tell you what that is, only you can. And then after that's done, and you'll also have access to the private group through this. You can be inspired by other widows who've gone through this. Once that one-on-one coaching is done, then you also have that group that you can turn to who know what it's like to be where you are, who are looking for that next step of rejoicing that they're not just a widow anymore. They're more than that and how to live forward. It's all of that. If you'd like anything to do tonight, I would like you to do one of two things. First of all, if you want like a copy of the resource that I just shown you, I would like you to comment tears. And I will get that to you straight away. So you're gonna have to go through it and actually put it on your wall and look at it and say, do I identify with this? Where am I now? Am I at this point? Am I at this point? Am I that point? What can I expect? How is this different than the stages of grief? Because it really is. Comment tears for the free resource. And if you want more, I would love you to book a free coffee chat with me. There's no pressure, no sales. Literally, it's just me listening to your story, helping you understand where you are on your grief journey. Do you want to reclaim your life? Do you want to figure out what your next step is? Are you not ready for that yet? You just want someone to listen to you and understand you. And I promise you that after the 45 minutes of working with me for that free 45 minutes, you'll have a better idea about what your next steps are. And that if that happens to be that your next step is to work with me even more on a one-on-one to figure out what your new identity is, then we'll have another call where I can tell you what my group is about, what my program is about, and what I can do to help you go forward. Guys, you were incredible beings. I want to thank you for being here because honestly, being here is the first step to reaching out and realizing that this is something you can do on your own, but you don't have to. That's why this group is here. This is why my program is here. And this is ultimately why this is my life goal to really help you find that power you do have in you and normalize grief and help you stand on your own 2 feet so you can give a hand to your kids to help them up on their own solid ground. I've been there. I'm still going through it. 8 years and I'll never stop grieving. But I have stopped mourning. And that's a huge difference. If you're here, I'd love to hear more from you. Give me a chat, give me a DM. Again, if you want the resource, comment tiers, the brief free resource. If you want to book a call with me, I'd love to get to know you. Until then, every Thursday, we're having a free training session. Next Thursday is a special one. It's the Widow's Cocktail Hour, where it's literally a grief share, where it's online and it's a safe environment. We're all going to talk together. I'd love to hear your story. All right, guys, I hope you got something from this. I'd love to hear from it. Comment with anything you have to say. No judgment, no rules, no stages, just you and your own grief journey. All right, good night, guys.